What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And let me tell you, we finally have our first big upset of the decade, of the season, of the you name it. And let me tell you this big upset. This was a huge St. Francis of Pennsylvania. Many of you are wondering, who is St. Francis of Pennsylvania? Well, they're this little school that not a whole lot of people have heard. They upset No.7 Stanford. Yes, No.7 Stanford fell to St. Francis of Pennsylvania on the road. Who would have thought? If you predicted that, go ahead and take a bow right now, because that was probably the most unpredictable upset I've ever seen. And it's very impressive as well. Also, USC losing not once, but twice on the road in 2 upsets. What went wrong for the Trojans, and how can they steer the ship the correct way? Also, you're also going to be hearing my top 5 matches for this week. Who will they be? Who will be standing out? Who will be the key to victory? And who will be hoisting the W at the end of the match? All that and more on Set Point. You're listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Welcome, volleyball fans of all ages, whether you're a boy or a girl, a man or a woman. Welcome to Set Point once again. As I said, my name is Teran Rodriguez. I will be your host for today, but you've probably already known that for quite a while. So, yeah, thank you all for tuning in to this amazing edition for Set Point, and, it's great to be back on again. This is episode 19, and we're just chugging along, and the men's volleyball season is starting to pick up a little. Last week there weren't too many noteworthy final scores or noteworthy upsets, but now this week it's starting to pick up, and we now close the book on week number 2. We'll be transitioning to week number 3. And also we have one team will be making their debut this week, but it won't be in NCAA volleyball. It'll be in the NAIA. Who will that team be? We'll get into that a little later into the show. Right now, we have the first upset of the year belong to St. Francis of Pennsylvania, which I'm pretty sure no one's ever heard of. I hardly even heard of this school. They play in Harvard's conference, which is probably the Ivy, which I believe is the Ivy League or something like that. But, St. Francis of Pennsylvania, they wanted to defend their home court, and they did. They went down 2-0 in sets to Stanford, No.7 Stanford. Stanford just started out strong, but then suddenly they just turned on the magic. What happened? Let's recap that little matchup. All right, so like I said, we have someone in the chat room real quick. Let's see who it is. Hey, Davidson Crooks. How's it going, Davidson? Have a great show. Thank you very much, Davidson. It means a lot for you to tune in and say that. I really appreciate you. All right, now let's jump into this St. Francis versus Stanford matchup like a cold bull. You feel me? All right, so just to quickly summarize the first 2 sets, Stanford came to play. Everything was just going right for Stanford. Nothing really went St. Francis's way, and suddenly Stanford was up 2-0 in the match. Stanford took the first set quite easily, 25-15, and then they took the second set 25-19, and Stanford looked like it was going to be a short match, and it's no surprise because Stanford is definitely a great team. They have some good players on their team. Last year they were a bit young, but, this year they have some good players, such as Will Rotman, who's a freshman, and Eric Beatty, I believe he's a junior outside hitter. Those guys are good. And, then like I said, Will Rotman is a beast. He was a real standout player for Santa Barbara High School last year, helped the Dons go deep into the playoffs last year in the CIF Southern Section playoffs. But, we'll be saving that for a little bit. But right now, Stanford's up 2-0 on the match, and St. Francis fans are worried, and, it's looking like it's going to be an easy night for the Cardinal. But then St. Francis jumps out to an early 5-0 lead, and they never trailed in set number 3, which was very surprising. I could not believe St. Francis had that in them. And I couldn't believe Stanford just laid an egg in that set. St. Francis took the third set 25-19, and then suddenly St. Francis had a little momentum going. St. Francis was obviously not going to give up and just say, "Oh, we're just going to let you sweep us on our home floor." That's not how you defend your home court, because your fans that take time out of their lives and watch you play, they deserve to see a match. They deserve to see a great matchup between you and the opposing team. And if you're just going to lay down and just say, "Oh, just beat us in embarrassing fashion," and just disgust our home fans, especially when you're coming from California all the way up to Pennsylvania, and then all your Pennsylvania fans or St. Francis fans are just looking to hopefully see you win. It would be embarrassing to see the home team lose in embarrassing fashion, unless that team is really good. I mean, Stanford is up there in terms of greatness, but I don't think they're on the level of Hawaii or UCLA or BYU or Long Beach State. We'll get into those a little bit later, but back to the matchup between St. Francis and Stanford. Set 4 was kind of interesting. St. Francis, they hardly trailed in that set. They only trailed one time in set number 4. They only trailed 1-0. That says a lot about that set. So, obviously, I can obviously stop right there and just jump into set 5. But, St. Francis, when it was up most of the set, they basically, I don't think they didn't lead by as many as, they led by no more than 3, though. So every time their lead was up to 3, Beatty or Eric Beatty or Will Rotman would basically get a kill to pull Stanford to within 2 and then eventually 1. But if that lead got down to 1, St. Francis would not allow that lead to either get tied or to have Stanford have their way. So St. Francis basically just turned on whatever comeback magic they had. They were just basically outdoing Stanford, and it was surprising. And then suddenly, even though that the set says it was close, the set obviously said it was close, and it was very close, but for the most part, Stanford was not in control of that set, and then St. Francis was in control of set number 4, winning 25-23. And suddenly the match was 2-2, and it was going to a 5th set now, and anything can happen. So the 5th set, St. Francis jumps out to an early 3-0 lead. And then and spoiler alert, they never trailed. Okay, but not really. I'm not going to cheap you all there. I'm not going to cheap you all out in regards to that. St. Francis was just on it tonight. St. Francis, behind the arm of Michael Fisher, who had a blistering 29 kills, was just practically unstoppable. After losing that second set, something just clicked for St. Francis, and Michael Fisher was not about to lose, and it was quite amazing because Stanford never got into a rhythm after losing set 4, and it's tough to lose a close set like that, but if you're Stanford, you have a lot to prove, because if you want to hang with the teams such as Long Beach State, UCLA, BYU, Hawaii, UC Santa Barbara, Lewis, you name it. You got to be strong. And I don't think Stanford showed a lot of mental toughness in that set. Oh, here's Larry B. He says, "Good afternoon, Mr. Teran." Hey, Larry B. What's going on, Larry? So appreciate you tuning in, just in time to hear me wrap up on St. Francis of Pennsylvania beating Stanford, and Larry says, "Good evening, Mr. Davidson." Yeah, so yeah. Stanford never really got back into a rhythm after dropping that tight 4th set, and that kind of was the turning point. I think that right there was the turning point in St. Francis winning set 5 because they never trailed. They were in no danger whatsoever, and eventually St. Francis took the 5th set 15-11, and that was the match. Stanford got reverse swept out of Pennsylvania, and another turning point for St. Francis was when their lead was cut down. Was set 3 when they led pretty big, and then their lead got cut down to only 1, which was the closest Stanford ever got in set 3, which was 17-16. And then suddenly St. Francis went all gas, no brakes, and I just think Stanford just relaxed way too much in set 3, and eventually they just fell short, and that's kind of disappointing for St. Francis because who did they? And I'm just like, who did Stanford lose to? And I'm pretty sure most volleyball fans would be like, who did Stanford lose to? I mean, upsets happen every now and then, but you gotta close the deal. Like, unless, of course, Stanford rested their starters, and then their coach just basically brought in the reserves just because they were up 2-0 in the match after seeing them dominate the first 2 sets. I just could not believe that Stanford, being number 7 at the moment, last week, they just didn't seal the deal, and that kind of puts a little bit of a red flag on them, saying, what if they do this against UCLA? What if they do this in the Mountain Pacific Conference? Because there is no Pac-12. There's a Mountain Pacific Sports Federation Conference. So for those of you saying, oh, well, what about Pac-12 play? No. Mountain Pacific Sports Federation Conference. Remember that. You're going to be hearing that a lot. Because there aren't a whole lot of men's volleyball teams as opposed to women's volleyball. Like, there's no Oregon or Oregon State men's volleyball or Colorado men's volleyball. They used to have, like, a club team, but then they disbanded it, which is sad face. And, yeah, you get the picture. But, Stanford, they disappointed me in that match. I was disappointed in that match. As for St. Francis, I gotta give mad props to them. And Davidson Crooks says, I didn't know that. So, okay. So, for those of you that don't know, and, I used to be one of those guys. I didn't know that there wasn't a Pac-12 in men's volleyball as well. But, but now everything is pretty much converted into Mountain Pacific Sports Federation Conference. And I think there are only like three like big time conferences, and also BYU is in USC and UCLA's conferences, and I think that's the same way for men's water polo as well. There's not enough teams to field like a Pac-12 because there's not a whole lot of. And Davidson Crooks says about the conferences. Well, yeah. I mean, it's totally fine. Like, it's no biggie. Like, I don't think a whole lot of people would know that. Like, the standard fan would probably not know that. So if you didn't know about the conferences, then don't feel bad, because I was once that person as well. So until I had to do some research about volleyball and all that. So. Now let's get into the stats of St. Francis and Stanford. As I said, Michael Fisher had 29 kills, and he had a blistering 537 for the match. And he had 29 kills on 41 swings, on 41 attempts. He did have 7 hitting errors, but that 537 hitting percentage really stands out to me. And then also for St. Francis, Blake Leprando had 13 kills and a hitting percentage of 375. Like I said, if you hit 300 or above, you're golden. To me, 250 or above is a solid hitting performance. 300 or above is basically you had a really good match. Those are kind of like mad numbers. And 400 or above is basically Madden numbers. And then, especially with a high kill stat such as 29 kills, that's just amazing right there. So I definitely got to tip my hat to St. Francis, and that's just amazing. You just can't fault St. Francis because they were the home team, and then basically they just didn't want to lose. They just dug deep and just said, you know what, we're not going down without a fight. So and it doesn't take a genius to know that you need to have strong mental toughness in certain games, whether it's football, basketball, volleyball. You need to be strong physically and mentally. And I think St. Francis just had that sense of urgency that just kicked them in the head and said, you know what, we're better than this. We can take down Stanford. And I gotta give the applause button to St. Francis. So yeah, that's how St. Francis won. You know, B.J. Blair and Roman Swabanski both led the 6-2 offense of St. Francis. For those of you that don't know what a 6-2 offense is, it's basically two setters. And the setter basically is like the quarterback of the team. You know, he basically sets the ball, and then the hitter, whether it's like the outside hitter, the middle blocker, or the right side guy, hits the ball onto the other side and hopefully possibly inbounds. So for those of you that don't know, St. Francis did run a 6-2 offense. Swabanski had 40 assists, and then B.J. Blair had 16 assists, which definitely goes a long way. It definitely having a 6-2 offense honestly takes a whole lot of pressure off of the one setter, you know, the primary setter. And it's just good. It's very good. And despite only playing two sets, you know, B.J. Blair was able to do a lot for St. Francis, which is very good. And then, but the strange thing about St. Francis is that none of their players cracked double-digit digs. Now, for those of you that don't know what a dig is, you basically just keep the ball up from not touching the ground. Because, like most people joke about it, you know, volleyball is basically an extreme version of don't let the balloon touch the floor that you normally play at parties. But, you know, this kind of also interprets from what I said last week, where men's volleyball doesn't really get a whole lot of digs as opposed to women's volleyball. So, but that's just my take on that. But, you know, who knows? You know, the highest dig, the highest in terms of digs on St. Francis was Gabe Waffenden, who had 7 digs. So there's that. So there's that in regards to that. And then block-wise, Cole Carver had 6 blocks, you know, 6 were block assists, and then 1 was a solo block. Brandon Duns had 6 blocks, which is also very impressive. So overall, I just think St. Francis had something click for them after they took that 3rd set, and then that 4th set, and then so on and so forth. For Stanford, they were led by Jalen Jasper, who had 24 kills, hitting percentage of .356. Pretty solid, actually. Very, very solid. You know, I believe Jalen Jasper is a sophomore or a junior. But overall, you know, Jalen Jasper is a big-time performer for Stanford as well. And then Eric Beatty also had 15 kills with a hitting percentage of .357, which, you know, that's also good as well. And then the freshman Will Rotman had 9 kills with a hitting percentage of .261. Solid hitting percentage, but, you know, it just wasn't enough. So again, I just don't know how Stanford lost that one. You know, Stanford's just quite odd. It's just odd. And yeah, Jalen Jasper is a junior, so Jasper will be back next year. And then Eric Beatty, I believe, is a junior as well. So this Stanford team has promise. I don't think they're bad. Eric Beatty's a senior. Never mind. So, yeah, Eric Beatty, you know, he's a very talented player as well. He was a part of that legendary Huntington Beach high school team, along with TJ DeFalco and Josh Tuaniga, that won 121 games in a row and then won 3 CIF Southern Section titles and 2 national championships. And then they also won 3 state titles as well, or SoCal regional titles as well. So back to Stanford and St. Francis. You know, Paul Bischoff had 47 assists. Stanford ran a 5-1 as opposed to a 6-2, which to each team is their own. So honestly, I just think Stanford, that's going to be their wake-up call, hopefully, because Stanford has another big matchup, which I'll be getting into a little bit later, but, Stanford's has some work to do in regards to that loss and going forward. That Stanford did bounce back, and they beat George Mason of Fairfax, Virginia, and they also beat New Jersey Institute of Technology. And I'll be talking about those two teams a little bit later as well. So there's that. Again, very shocking loss, very impressive win for St. Francis, but Stanford just disappointed me. I'm sorry. I just think Stanford's loss to St. Francis, nothing against St. Francis, by the way, not to knock St. Francis, but that is mainly a loss you cannot afford for Stanford. Fortunately, it's still early in the season, and Stanford still has plenty of time to make up for that loss. So who knows? Maybe they'll pull an upset in the near future. Who knows? So, all right. So moving on from St. Francis and Stanford, we have number 6 Lewis barely beating UC Irvine at the Bren Event Center in 5 sets on Thursday. So let me talk about this matchup. I was very surprised to see UC Irvine just coming out strong. I knew UC Irvine does have a talented team, and then Lewis is also up there. But Lewis is also up there, and Lewis was just strong. Lewis is strong, first set, Lewis just they didn't really dominate the first set. It was just back and forth, and then Lewis just found their opening, and they took the first set, winning the first set 25-21. Lewis actually jumped out to a 6-0 lead in set 2, and suddenly the UC Irvine fans were worried. They were thinking, oh my gosh, what's going on with the Anteaters? And then UC Irvine eventually tied it up at 11-11, and then the set was eventually tied at 19-19, but 3 straight points from UC Irvine in set 2 pretty much gave them the set 25-21 eventually. And then set 3, Lewis led 11-10, but then UC Irvine took the lead at 12-11 and then never looked back. And then suddenly UC Irvine was up 2-1 on Lewis, and it was looking like there was going to be an upset brewing in the Bren. But then set 4, it was tight the first half of set 4. It was eventually 13-13. That's just how tight the first half of that set was. And then the turning point of set 4 was Lewis scoring 5 straight points to lead 18-13, and then they never looked back as the lead was cut to no fewer than 4, and suddenly we saw ourselves with a 5-set match as Lewis took set 4 25-20, and then the 5th set began. So UC Irvine led throughout most of the first half of the 5th set, but they only led 8-7. It was very tight in that match. It was back and forth. I think Irvine scored the first 3 points, and then because when you go to a 5th set, it goes up to 15. Once you reach 15 points and you win by 2, you win. So UC Irvine was off to a fast start, but then Lewis was on their tailcoats, and then at 8-7, once a team reaches in college volleyball, once a team reaches 8 points in a 5th set, you basically switch sides, just in case a team has to deal with the lighting or something like that. So after the side change, UC Irvine went up 11-8, and they're 4 points away from pulling off an upset right there. I mean, I couldn't really classify that as an upset. I just think it would be a great game by an impressive win for Irvine had they won. Spoiler alert, they didn't. But then Lewis, so after UC Irvine was up 11-8, Lewis started to rally. Lewis was pretty much on the coattails of UC Irvine, and then suddenly it was tied 13-13, and then Lewis misses a serve, and then suddenly, a serve is basically like a serve in tennis, except you don't get a second chance if you miss. So Lewis misses a serve with the score tied at 13-13, and then UC Irvine has match point, and then everyone at the Bren Event Center is standing up, and then, UC Irvine has match point. Except the worst thing that happened for UC Irvine actually happened. UC Irvine missed a serve, and then they gave the ball back to Lewis. When you miss a set, for those of you that don't know, when you miss a set in volleyball, or when you miss a serve in volleyball, you basically give the other team a point, and you give them the ball back, and then they serve. It's not like tennis where if you miss a serve, you basically get a fault, and then you get another chance to serve. If so, then volleyball would probably be a little bit never-ending, and there would probably be a lot fewer service errors. So there's that, and then UC Irvine obviously got another match point at 15-14. And, they had a chance to put away the match, but unfortunately Lewis double-stuffed them. So now it was 15-15. UC Irvine got another kill, and then they had match point at 16-15, but UC Irvine missed another serve. That's 2 missed serves. So now it was 17-16, and 17-16 UC Irvine. UC Irvine got another point via a kill, but guess what happened? Did UC Irvine A, clinch the match, B, miss a serve, C, hit it into the net off of a kill error, or D, shank the ball out of bounds? Well, if you guessed B, you were correct. They missed another serve. UC Irvine missed 3 serves when they had 3 match points. How do you do that? Oh, gosh. So it was just ridiculous, It was just ridiculous, and yeah. And now it was once 17-16, now it's 17-17. Then Lewis started to get match points, but to the resiliency of UC Irvine, they didn't allow Lewis to end the match that quickly. And eventually, UC Irvine had another match point at 20-19. But in the defense of UC Irvine, Lewis actually got a kill to go down. They were able to penetrate through the big block of Scott Static, who is 7 feet tall and who's a very talented middle blocker. So suddenly it was 20-20, and then that was pretty much that, as Lewis earned another point off of a kill, and then the last point was very, very questionable and very cringeworthy, because the last point, Lewis is up 21-20 and they're serving for the match. Obviously they serve really tough, and then, one of their hitters was about to go up for a hit. I'm not going to name names because I'm not going to discriminate or hurt anyone's feelings. But the way that UC Irvine player went up for the kill at 21-20, he tried to hit it like off speed. He didn't try to swing it at like 100 miles per hour. He tried to like catch the Lewis defense off guard with an off speed kill, which would hopefully hit the floor to the point where Lewis's players would not be able to get to the ball. So Lewis's players easily dug the ball up, and then their setter just fed the middle. The ball went off of the block and then went out of bounds, and since it was last touched by UC Irvine's player, Lewis got the point, and then they won the match. So it was a very great game between both teams, but UC Irvine has to be kicking themselves after like, how do I say this? Just botching 3 match points by themselves. It's obvious that match points and set points obviously are botchable. Like, there's no way to say this. Like, sometimes things happen. But when you miss 3 serves and you have match point, you're probably kicking yourselves thinking, why did we miss that serve? Because losses like that could act like UC Irvine was number 8 at the time, and then Lewis was number 6 at the time. And honestly, a win like that would have definitely helped UC Irvine. It would have had other teams looking at them and saying, oh, UC Irvine's a team to watch for. But now this kind of leaves a little bit of a question mark above UC Irvine, thinking, Irvine loves to miss a bunch of serves. Now, at the collegiate level, and when it comes to men's volleyball, you have to serve tough. You have to. There's no questions. You have to serve tough. No debate, no questions. You have to serve tough. But you also have to be aware of just just limiting the number of your errors, especially service errors. Like, you just can't, like, allow yourself to give the ball back in a crucial situation. But, I gotta give it up for UC Irvine in that match. That was a very good effort by them, But, when you're at home and you basically are trying to pull an upset, I definitely think Irvine could have won that one. But, like I said, it's still early in the season. They could still basically bounce back from that loss. And eventually Irvine did bounce back from that loss, beating Loyola of Chicago in 4 sets the day after. And by the way, the Irvine-Lewis matchup was on a Thursday, which, it's also a little bit weird to play a match on a Thursday instead of a Friday, because most volleyball matches are played on Thursday, or played on Friday and Saturday, and then sometimes on Sunday, but not really on Sunday. But, it must have been one of those weird Thursday games. As for the stats, Lewis had a pretty balanced attack, with Ryan Conan totaling 19 kills, with a hitting percentage of .341, pretty impressive, actually. And then Kyle Bougie had 15 kills and a hitting percentage of .251, solid. TJ Murray was also very impressive as well, with 12 kills, 1 hitting error, and a hitting percentage of .458. And then he also had 24 swings as well. So TJ Murray almost hit 50%, which is very impressive. And he also chipped in three blocks as well. There weren't a whole lot of blocks on when it came to Lewis. There was only one solo stuff, which was by Tyler Mitchum, who clinched the match for Lewis, which, that was big on his part, getting a kill in the middle. And as for UC Irvine, Joel Schneidmiller had 22 kills and a hitting percentage of .486. He only had 4 hitting errors. Quite impressive. And then Alexander, I'm probably going to butcher his last name, Sakanda had 16 kills. He only had a hitting percentage of .186, which was not really good. And then JB Cam, who I personally know, who played at my junior college, had 8 kills. He only had a hitting percentage of .125. A little bit disappointing, but, again, it's still early in the season. What really did surprise me was that Scott Static only had 3 kills and 2 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of .111. He was utilized at the block when it came to blocking quite a bit, so he had 3 solo stuffs and 6 block assists. In other words, a block assist is that you basically help team up with another player on your team to block the ball. So I feel they should maybe use Scott Static on offense as well as defense, in my opinion. But I'm not David Niffen. But me personally, if UC Irvine is going to be good, they got to bring out the best in all their players offensively. It's great to see JB Cam getting in there, because last year, he wasn't seen a whole lot with UC Irvine after transferring from Orange Coast College. But, it's great to see JB just getting some action in there. So there's that. So there's that matchup. Now, the last matchup I want to go over is UC San Diego's upset win over number 11 Loyola of Chicago. Yes, let me tell you, number 11, unranked and receiving votes, UC San Diego upset then number 11 Loyola of Chicago. It was a win at San Diego. Or it was on the road. It was not at UC San Diego. It was at Loyola of Chicago. And we have another message from the group chat. It's from RJ Kolstead. Popping in while I can't have a good show, Tan. Hey, thank you, RJ. I definitely appreciate you tuning in for the show and popping in. So thanks again, RJ. So now this matchup against UC San Diego and Loyola, I actually didn't expect UC San Diego to pull this one off. But I was very impressed by one player, and I personally know this one player. So I'm actually just going to speed up to the fifth. Well, first of all, the set scores of the UC San Diego Loyola of Chicago matchup were 25-9, 20-25, 25-16, 23-25, and then 16-14. So, yeah, UC San Diego, they dominated that first set. I don't know what happened. I don't know if someone in the crowd made UC San Diego mad, but honestly, that was a very one-sided set. Let me tell you all this, when you hold your opponent to less than 10 points, everything pretty much went your way, which is absolutely amazing. The second set, Loyola, it was tight, but then Loyola just pulled away. Third set, UC San Diego was just the better team. Everything was just rolling their way. And then the fourth set, back and forth action until Loyola had the lead, and then they never surrendered it despite getting a challenge from UC San Diego. So that was and then they won 25-23, and then suddenly it's a fifth set. So the fifth set was basically UC San Diego starting off with a 3-0 lead, but Loyola wouldn't go quietly as they went up 8-7 at the side change. What was looking like to be a one-sided match actually turned out to be a true battle. Loyola led 8-7 at the side change, because when you cross 8, you basically switch sides just in case, you don't have to deal with the opposing crowd behind you when you're serving, or if you don't have to deal with the lighting or any of that. So yeah, Loyola actually led 11-10 in that tightly contested fifth set, but then the Tritons scored 3 straight points, and suddenly they were up 13-11. But Loyola actually tied it up at 13-13, but then, just like UC Irvine, Loyola missed a serve, which gave UC San Diego the ball back, and they gave them a match point at 14-13. But just like UC Irvine, UC San Diego got the same incentive just like the Anteaters did. They missed a serve at match point to give the ball back to Loyola and give them a chance at a serve. So eventually, the Tritons had match point again at 15-14, and then a strong serve from one of the servers of UC San Diego, and what pretty much went over the net, which is pretty much called an overpass. Whenever the defenders mishandle the ball, and they send it back to the other side, they mispass it back to the other side, and then the other team pretty much has a chance to pretty much get the kill. And Kyle McCauley, remember this name, Kyle McCauley of UC San Diego, put down a thunderous kill to give the Tritons the match and the upset win over Loyola of Chicago. So that was an impressive win for the Tritons. We gotta hit the applause button for UC San Diego one time. Oh shoot! And silly me, I forgot to unmute my mic, which I was wondering what was going on. I'm sorry, guys. So just as a recap, stupid me, and I just muted my mic when we hit the applause button. Hopefully, I didn't I was able to get some of the sound in, but just to recap, US, I picked USC to beat Concordia on Thursday. Then on Friday, I picked Long Beach State to beat USC. I took USC to beat Concordia in 4 sets. Then I took Long Beach State to beat USC in 3 sets. Then I took UCLA to beat UCSD in 4 sets. Then now we're at number 1 Hawaii versus number 5 Lewis, which, that's gonna be a big game right there. Lewis gets the home crowd, but Hawaii's fans love to travel well. They travel well with one another. So overall, I gotta go with number 1 Hawaii. I'm gonna say number 1 Hawaii sweeps number 5 Lewis. I just don't think there's hardly anyone that could stand up to the tower of power that is Hawaii, and this is definitely Hawaii's best team by far. It's early to. I know it's early to say that, but this is just Hawaii's just good, man. Their Rado Parapanov is really good. He's got 41 kills to lead the team, and he's just really good, man. He's friggin' talented. Then Colton Caldwell is really good on the outside, and then Patrick Gassman is a 6'10" middle blocker. He is just absolutely amazing. So, yeah, I gotta go with Hawaii sweeping Lewis. I can't believe I'm saying that in a battle of 2 top 5 teams, but, Hawaii is just an impressive team. You just can't, they hardly have any weaknesses. You basically have to out-grit them. So that's pretty much that in regards to that. And then Saturday's matchup, I have down as another big matchup, number 1 Hawaii at number 11 Loyola of Chicago. I will be honest with you all, Loyola is going to need Sister Jean in order for the men's volleyball team to upset Hawaii. But yeah, I got Hawaii beating Loyola in straight sets as well. Just because Hawaii is just really talented. Again, Hawaii is arguably the favorite to win it all this year. So there's that. So yeah, once again, my picks for my top 5 are Long Beach State over USC in 3 sets, UCLA over UC San Diego in 4 sets, Stanford over UC Irvine in 5 sets, Hawaii over Lewis in 3 sets, and then Hawaii over Loyola in 3 sets as well. So those are my picks for this week. I really feel bad for unmuting my mic after hitting the applause button. Just trying to make everything quality-like, but I guess I overthought things as always. Oh well. So before I sign off, I have another thing I need to add. So Vanguard University's men's volleyball team kicks off their season tomorrow at home against University of St. Catherine. That'll be, for those of you that don't know, Vanguard University is a nice little private school in Costa Mesa, California, kind of near my neck of the woods. They're an NAIA school, for starters. Vanguard's an NAIA school, and also, more importantly, this is only their first year. This is only Vanguard's first year as a men's volleyball program. So they'll obviously struggle in certain games, but I think Vanguard wins their first inaugural game as an NAIA team in their home and season opener against University of St. Catherine. Obviously, this is their season opener, so I don't know what to expect, but I really think Vanguard has what it takes. I'll be getting more into NAIA later on this season, once the season is in full swing, once the NAIA season is in full swing, this is kind of going to be like 3 and out, except no Larry B for starters. But possibly just recapping on the men's side until like the beach volleyball season starts up again, because I'm also going to be covering beach volleyball season as well. So once that happens, we'll see. We'll see what happens in regards to the NAIA volleyball season. But for now, I'll cover a little bit of NAIA volleyball. My goal for once set point is expanded, once I get my feet fully wet, I'll hopefully be able to cover all of the NCAA, maybe even NCAA Division II, and then NAIA. I'm not trying to copy I'm not trying to copy 3 and out college edition, but it would be cool to have a set point cover all of the volleyball things. So there's that. Also another thing is that the NCAA women's volleyball team, or the NCAA Women's Volleyball Committee, proposed a new rule about officialing. So the NCAA Women's Volleyball Rule Committee recommended including an option to add a third referee to conduct all video challenge reviews during a match beginning in the 2020 season. Before going into effect, rule changes must be approved by the NCAA Playing Rules Oversight Panel, which is scheduled to discuss all women's volleyball proposals on February 26th. So I get why they're doing this, just because, there were a few missed calls in the NCAA volleyball tournament, especially in the semifinals between Baylor and Wisconsin, and I think there were a few missed calls between Wisconsin and Stanford in the NCAA final. This is to ensure that all the calls are 100% accurate, and then not one team gets cheated out of a missed call, which winds up costing them the match or their season or something along the lines of that. So I totally get why they add that rule, and it's really good that they have challenges in general, just because like they do in football, and some people can say it slows the game down, but I'd rather have an accurate matchup than a short and inaccurate matchup, which winds up costing a team big time. In volleyball, in regards to challenges, you get 3 challenges, surprisingly. And if you win and no matter what happens, if you win or you lose the challenge, you basically use that challenge. And you could challenge anything in regards to that, but you, say, if a ball goes out when it was ruled in, you can challenge the ruling on the field, but you can only challenge it being out instead of in. You can't challenge it to possibly see a net violation or anything else going on. So yeah, it's pretty cool to have 3 challenges in a game. And some people say 3 challenges are a little too much, but to me, it's totally fine, just as long as everything is accurate. And also, I want to give a shout out to everyone in the group chat. Just not to go off topic, but just say what's up to Marcus and say what's up to RJ and Davidson and Larry. Thank you all for tuning in. It definitely means a lot to me, honestly. So, but back to the challenges, it's great to have 3 challenges, and, this third referee to conduct all video challenge reviews during a match would be beneficial. So, yeah, there's that. So, in regards to that, I think that's pretty good, and I think that'll help limit the missed calls, in all honesty. So, we'll see in regards to that. So, So yeah. I feel there was one more thing. Oh yeah, the top 15 for this week. The top 15 for NCAA men's volleyball. Even though I just gave away a few of them, so I'm going on NCAA men's volleyball app. Or not NCAA men's volleyball app. The NCAA volleyball site. Forget it. We'll just go off of what the off of what Twitter posted, and I'll just use the link right there. So there we go. Here's the site. Here's the this week's top 15, and yes, it's top 15, not top 25. Like I said, there aren't a whole lot of NCAA Division I men's volleyball schools like there is in NCAA Division I women's volleyball. So. So, in regards to the top 15, we'll do this Larry B style and go 15 through 11 and so on and so forth. Okay, so 15 through 11. Ohio State. Hey, the Ohio State is back in the top 15. They were last week they were unranked. Now this week they are number 15. Number 14, Penn State. Last week they were ranked number 15 and suddenly they're up. Even though they haven't won a game, they lost both times to to BYU. This is surprising. I'll be honest, I'm very surprised to see Penn State at number 14 despite having an 0-2 record. But that's none of my business. Number 13 is George Mason. Hey, welcome to the top 15, George Mason. And number 13, George Mason. Last week they were unranked. Now this week they are ranked. They're at number 13 after upsetting USC. Number 12 is Loyola of Chicago. Last week they were number 11, and this week they're number 12 because they lost to UC San Diego. And then number 10 is Princeton, which last week they were number 4. Or no, last week they were Princeton is number 11. Last week they were 10. They fell down because they don't have too many standout wins. So now through 10 through 6, well actually it's going to be 10. Well, actually we'll go 10 through 7 because you'll see why. Number 10 is Purdue of Fort Wayne. Hey, welcome to the top 10. Purdue of Fort Wayne. Pretty cool to see them in the top 5 or the top 10. Number 9 is Stanford. So Purdue is Purdue's number 10. Number 9 is Stanford after they lost to St.Francis. I'm surprised they didn't drop out of the top 10. Number 8 is Pepperdine, which didn't have a game. They're still idle. They went up a spot, I guess. Then number 7 is UC Irvine. Now for the top 5. You're wondering where's number 6? Well, Lewis and Long Beach State both occupy the number 6 spot. They're both tied for number 5, so that's pretty cool, I guess. Number 4 is UC Santa Barbara. Number 3 is UCLA. Number 2 is BYU, Brigham Young University. And numero uno of the top 15 for this week is... I won't keep you all in suspense. Hawaii. So Hawaii is still number 1, not really surprising. But, one more thing before I sign off is that John Diedrich, a freshman for University of Purdue of Fort Wayne, he set the freshman program record for 48 kills in his first two collegiate appearances against Queens and Belmont Abbey. That is the most in the scoring rally era for Purdue of Fort Wayne. So that's very impressive for John Diedrich. Let's hit the applause button one more time. And yes, my voice is cracked. And that's about going to wrap it up. Sorry if some of the the recording got cut off, but again, I tried to be a little fancy, but what happens when you're fancy is that everything falls apart. Hopefully I didn't mess up a little too much, but who knows? We gotta learn from our mistakes. You learn from your mistakes, and all you could just do is just laugh off your mistakes. So for those of you that, and coming up will be our boy Marcus Losgreat, who will be coming on really soon with Gloves Off, his boxing show, which I highly recommend. And I also recommend all the other shows on IE Sports Radio. And follow us as a whole on Twitter. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And listen to us on Spreaker, on TuneIn, on iHeartRadio, all those platforms. And you can follow me at Teran Rodriguez on Twitter. At Teran Rodriguez 1 is my Twitter handle. And I'll be talking a lot of sports and volleyball and all that good stuff. So without further delay, let's cue the music, because we are OUT out. So once again, I'd like to thank you all for tuning in to... Oh, there's Larry B saying, great show, Teran. Hey, thanks, Larry B. I appreciate you. So once again, I would like to thank you all for tuning in to Set Point with your boy, Teran Rodriguez. I'll be seeing you next week. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week, and keep on with the keeping on in regards to volleyball. See you guys next week. Peace!